Hey everyone, this is John Coleman. Welcome to our Friends with Your Benefits LinkedIn Live. Look, it's September, so you know what that means. It's the start of the pumpkin spice latte season. And also, if you're in the benefits world, it's the start of open enrollment and the kickoff for that. And today, to really dive into how to effectively engage your employees, we brought on an awesome guest, a gentleman that needs no real formal introductions. We have Sims Tillerson, head of sales at Perks. Hey, Sims, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Really love the countdown music there. Super ethereal, calming. I feel like I'm in the zone for this thing now.
Absolutely. And just to tease us off at the very end of our LinkedIn Live, I think you're actually going to pick up one of those guitars behind you and maybe sing us a song, right?
Yeah, happy to do it. These are more than just wall decoration in here.
Cool. So really, Sims, now that we are in open enrollment season, we know that in the war for talent, a lot of companies out there are making some benefit enhancements or tweaks for 2023. But we know with the multifaceted workforce, right? You have some employees who are certainly in the office for manufacturing clients or manufacturing employees. They're actually working on the front lines. Nothing has
Mhm.
changed there. But for other employees, such as you and I, we're either working hybrid or fully remote. So, really want to hear from you. How do you actually effectively engage a workforce that is in the office, in the plants, and perhaps remote?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that when COVID hit and we went remote, our focus was, hey, let's meet employees where they are, and that is just not enough anymore. So the way
Sure.
I like to frame it now is we need to meet employees where they want to be met. So
Okay.
just because manufacturing employees on the front line, it doesn't mean that the best way they learn is through a group meeting. They
Right.
may need that group meeting and then a virtual benefit fair or a benefit guide or the ability to walk through that information with their partner at home after work. So we just got to be willing to be really flexible and provide options to employees.
Absolutely. And one thing that I see and I hear commonly is the old school way. You get that very detailed benefit booklet, right? And that benefit booklet I think could be really effective for new hires. But if you've been there for a few years, you kind of look at it and your eyes kind of gloss over as you're reading through it, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there's a ton of information here, right? So you kind of touched on different approaches, right? So first thing you mentioned is kind of the virtual benefits fair. So for those in our audience who aren't familiar, like how does a virtual benefits fair actually work?
Yeah, so it can work in a few different ways. I think the classic approach is that you take an in-person benefit fair and duplicate it in the type of experience we're having now. So you create a live event that employees can attend virtually.
Mhm.
But I think the other way, and the way that we're seeing become more common, is employees want access to all the information they need at their fingertips. So
Sure.
a virtual benefit fair now can be the place where your total rewards package lives, where employees can learn about it at any time they want without pulling out the 50-page benefit book
Right, yeah.
and scrolling through the pages to see it.
Yes, I think that that's certainly interesting, right? But how do you actually like, let's say, employer out there wants to make sure they reach you Sims, right? Clearly, it's not cost effective just to have something that's personalized just to you. But how do we get the profile Sims and make sure that, hey, Sims, and we're putting a program. Let's say we're putting in a program to help monitor your blood pressure, right? We're doing LinkedIn Live. Blood
Sure.
pressure is probably up, right? And we want to get that message across to you. How do we do that?
Yeah, so for me, I like to have information at my fingertips, read it over myself, and then be able to ask questions. That's how I learn personally. And the way that I advise people who have never really moved away from traditional in all in-person approach is ask your employees what they want, because everybody learns differently.
Mhm.
Gen Z, for example, they want the Starbucks approach, right? They don't just want black coffee. They want to be able to order exactly what it is that they want in their benefits package. So I advise people to use surveys. They're a good tool, but they're not the whole tool. So employees don't always tell you exactly what they mean. So use surveys. And then if you tell me you like text messages, we'll start text messages. And then we actually need to monitor your open rates, your click rates, the deliverability, and make sure that the behavior matches what we learned in the surveys.
Right. So I think that that's huge right there, and that's paramount, right? And you have to see what the surveys say, but you also certainly have to balance that against the cost that a company has to incur. I mean, benefits are crazy expensive, right?
Yeah.
So let's walk through something simple, right? Let's say you're a company and you have a PPO plan, you have an HSA plan, and you mentioned the Gen Zers, right? Probably most of the Gen Zers probably will be better off in an HSA plan, but
Right.
certainly they may prefer a copay based approach, right? How do you effectively like show them like, hey, this works, this doesn't work? I mean, should an employer say, hey, download your claims or give you a platform or examples? What do you recommend, Sims?
Yes, I mean we're seeing these decision support tools, and still real live benefit counselors stay really important for people like this. So, um, like I said, most folks want to be able to read over the options that they have, but they also want to see through storytelling what is the most effective option for me. So, for me and you, John, we got
Yep.
we got young kids. We probably need the
Yep.
PPO plan, right? But these younger folks, if we can walk them through a scenario of, hey, you go to the doctor twice a year and you get one prescription a month, you need the HDHP with the HSA. So I think storytelling and then a little bit of decision support can be really helpful for these folks, especially in the absence of a true in-person kind of environment.
Sure, absolutely. Touched on a lot of good things there. So one thing I just want to circle back on, right? So whether it's a virtual benefits fair, we're making fun of the old proverbial pamphlet, right? That's kind of out there. How much information do you actually want to give to your employees, right? You want to give them enough, but you don't want to overwhelm them. So where does that line kind of draw in the sand?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I like to do it is give employees just the information they need in an overview in their own language. So we're not copy and pasting from uh, a summary of benefits and coverage or a summary plan document, right? And then allowing employees to have direct access to ask their employer, their broker, the carrier questions if needed, and supplemental information that they can search as they'd like to. So we make benefit guides and SPDs index searchable for employees so they don't have to read a bunch of
Oh,
legal
great.
jargon, but maybe they can learn at their own pace.
Interesting. So here's kind of a loaded question for you, right? So mailers, are they still effective or are they going the way of the dinosaur? Like, does that add any value to open enrollment, what have you?
So I don't love them personally.
Sure.
When I was on the carrier side, we did a lot of them and incurred a ton of costs for them.
Yep.
But I'd tell you that we still see people doing it. So there's got to be somebody reading them. Um, my only guidance there would be if your only pre-enrollment communication is a mailer, you're doing it wrong. If it's an option, it may be good. It may be good for you.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think, just to follow up on that. So I think, sending a detailed guide in the mail, with the exception of if it's a new hire, I agree. Probably not the best use of company resources, but I think an effective postcard, right, can sometimes be interesting, especially if let's say you're rolling out a lifestyle spending account. And it's a huge benefit to employees to meet the needs of millennials, Gen Z, really across all the generations out there, right? So that could be, potentially an avenue. But yeah, I agree with you totally that the old school detailed packet in the mail, you definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely rough, but could be a good tool. I've seen enrollment firms use little real mailed postcards as an additional nudge on top of email, text message campaigns, and virtual and in-person events. So can be a great tool to have in the tool belt for sure.
How do you balance, like, let's say you have, one of the Buka carriers out there. How do you balance what you want the Buka carriers to send out to employees versus, what they might reach out to you, Sims, for through perks?
Yeah, so I think that having everybody on the same page when it comes to vendors, brokers, and then the HR team at the client is the way to do that. So we serve at Perks as a conduit to
Okay.
send information out, but I'll provide you with best practices, but I'm never going to be the person sending it out. I'm always going to want the buy-in from my broker partner, the buy-in from the HR team to say, hey, what do our employees really need to see?
Right, absolutely. And for those of you out there, we encourage you just to type any questions you may have for Sims, or just, give us a quick shout out and let us know that you are here. And afterwards, Sims and I will certainly go through your questions. So, Sims, I guess walk me through a timeline, right? So, open enrollment is really, the one time a year where you can generally reach employees to a certain degree.
Yeah.
When should employers really start planning for open enrollment? Like, is September too late? or is September okay? What do you see works just as a best practice out there?
Yeah, so I mean, you know this, planning for open enrollment's got to start way before September, but from a communication campaign perspective, I think if you give yourself a good month for a communication campaign ahead of the OE start date, you're in good shape.
Okay.
So I'd never say never in terms of it being too late, but the more time you give yourself, the better.
Absolutely. So, Sims, one final question before we go into the guitar session. So,
Yeah.
let's say an employer out there is going to have an active open enrollment, right? And that's different from the passive, where your elections aren't going to necessarily roll over. So, they really need employees to actually take action because if not, you're kind of SOL, right? Is there
Yeah.
anything that you would recommend communicating differently in an active open enrollment versus a passive open enrollment?
Yeah, I mean, as dark as it may sound, I think communicating the consequences of not participating is a really good way to go because employees do need to know, hey, this is active. If I don't participate, I literally don't have coverage.
Sure.
So I think that's good messaging to lean on.
Mhm.
And again, I would allow more time for a communication campaign for an active enrollment and use more methods of communication, whether it's email, whether it's texting, whether it's mailers, whether it's you name it, a real life group meeting.
Cool. No, Sims, again, I actually thought of one more question. So let's say there is an HR leader out there, right? And they realize, hey, like, we need to have an effective open enrollment. Where can they go to actually reach you in Perks?
Yeah, so you can always find me on LinkedIn, Sims Tillerson, or Sims SIMS at poweredbyperks.com.
Awesome. So, Sims, now let's walk to the fun part, right? So, what guitars do you have behind us? Then, what song you think you're going to sing us?
Yeah, so I've got a 1991, the black one, uh, Epiphone Les Paul Black Beauty, a
Wow.
1993 Gibson Dot, and then I've got a few Alvarez's around the room, but I'm actually going to pull out my baby, which is a
Wow.
2022 Gibson Hummingbird, and I've been playing a lot of Allman Brothers for my son
Okay,
recently,
cool.
so I thought I'd give you a little Allman Brothers today.
Absolutely.
Crossroads, same come and go. Gypsy flies from coast to coast, knowing men and loving on, bearing sorrow, having fun. But back home he'll always run to sweet Melissa. Just a little taste.
Wow. That totally blew me away, Sims. And I wish I had your talent. I have no musical ability whatsoever, other than to ask Alexa to play the next song, and hopefully she doesn't come on right now. But Sims, yeah, this has been this has been awesome. Really appreciate you spending time with us today. And I see there's some comments in the chat. Let's see if we can take a quick look, see if the system will cooperate. So there's actually one question that came from Will Appman out there, and I don't know if you necessarily know this. If not, Sims, we could certainly follow up. What percentage of
Yeah.
employees accidentally miss the deadline to enroll in active enrollment? I mean, is there any numbers that you kind of seen like happen? Is it like 5%, 10%? What have you really heard?
Yes, I mean, I think it differs organization to organization. I've worked in a 60-man startup before where we had an active enrollment and 100% of employees enrolled. Well ahead of our drop dead date. But as organizations grow larger, and as your communication campaigns kind of change, that number can be much different. But anything above 5 to 10% is pretty crazy. That means that means your communication campaign was definitely off the mark. But I'd say it certainly differs org to org.
Fair enough, Sims. And again, like to thank you for joining us for LinkedIn Live. And for those of you out there, we want to hear from you. Feel free to leave your comments in the chat below. Sims and I will be sure to check them after we sign off. And as always, we encourage you to like this video, share with someone out there who wants to know more about open enrollment. And Sims, thank you again. And thank you for singing that epic song at the end.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. It was a blast.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.